Welcome to the Why Not podcast, where I talk with leaders in business and education about innovation and change. Hi guys, I'm excited for season 2 of the Why Not podcast. It'll be a good time. I'm excited to bring on great guests in the upcoming episodes. I'm excited to talk about real practical advice on how to grow and improve, and I'm excited to share some ideas that I've had recently with you all. I took a break from podcasting so that I could focus on personal life as well as my educational pursuits. I'll be graduating with a Master of Business Administration from the University of Utah here shortly. I'm very excited to have been able to participate in that program. It's been exceptional, very helpful, both in terms of adding depth to my professional expertise, but then also towards adding a sense of confidence and adding towards my credentials. I mean, that's kind of the point of getting an MBA, right? You add depth to what you know and you have a piece of paper that can prove it. And I've really benefited and very much enjoyed my time at the University of Utah and am looking forward to commencement this May. Another reason that I decided to take a break from podcasting involves what I've been going through personally, which is evaluating where I am and what I really want to be doing, where I really hope to be. Both professionally and personally, I've been seeking to better understand myself, to structure my sense of self, especially as I've undergone some major changes throughout the past 5 years. To provide a little bit of context, I got married in 2020 during COVID. That was a crazy year. The world was on fire, literally in some places. But for me, it was a great year. I was still finishing my undergraduate degree at Brigham Young University, Idaho. And I met my wife and we got married and had a wonderful time. We then had 2 kids. They're wonderful. They're the joy of my life. They're fun and they're growing fast. Graduated BYU Idaho and then began pursuing my MBA at the University of Utah while growing in my career as a marketer and specifically a financial marketer. So I've restructured a lot of my belief systems. I used to be a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I no longer am. With that comes a lot of questions, a lot of deconstruction, all of which this podcast isn't focused on. But it led to the need to more formally structure the values that I have in terms of understanding, viewing, and comprehending the world, especially when you consider the fact that many religious people that are brought up in religion, raised that way, they're taught what to believe, not how to believe or how to think. They're taught what to think. And for many people, that's very helpful. It's very comforting. It's very beneficial to have that established sense of self given to them. For me, it was not that way. And because of that, I've had to establish my own sense of self. And I didn't feel it appropriate to be sharing ideas with my friends and colleagues and you without having that sense of self within myself. So that leads me towards the topic of today's episode, which is intended to set the stage for the following episodes. I used to do a podcast every week. I'm going to be doing it every other week. That's simply because I aim to ensure quality, both in terms of who I invite on the podcast, but then also in terms of the preparation and conversations that are involved. I feel I owe it to you all for participating and donating your time towards listening to my voice, that I ensure the quality of every experience. So the cadence will be every other week moving forward. That being said, the purpose of this podcast is to provide practical advice for growth and improvement. I'm going to be talking with business leaders, education leaders, some personal contacts and friends as well. And I hope to provide the environment on this podcast where if any of you have questions that you're genuinely dealing with or would like to have advice or different perspectives on that, you submit them to the channel so that I can discuss them with guests on the podcast. It's something that I've always wanted to be able to do when I started creating content, and I believe that I'm in a place now where I can do so with confidence. Control. Tenets of control. What is control? Control often has a negative stereotype attached to it as a word. There's a lot of different biases and reasons that go into that, especially cultural ones, depending on where you are. A lot of individuals that I know view control as a negative identifier towards partners, towards bosses, towards political figures, towards past relationships, towards parents, towards religious leaders, towards local community leaders. And it really has began to only carry the weight of a negative, hurtful lack of freedom. That's not what I'm talking about. For the purposes of this conversation, control is more about realization and self-actualization of reality and what is actually going on versus the emotional desire to dictate your surroundings. What do I mean by that? Something that I have been going through personally, intentionally, is to make sure I understand what I can and cannot control. For example, I cannot control how others react to the podcast. I cannot control how certain friends have reacted towards me leaving the religion of my youth. I can't control how the company that I am privileged to work with will respond to different requests. I can't control if my children are going to listen to me when I aim to parent them wisely. I can't control what's happening in the economy. I can't control the behaviors and actions, good or bad, political figures such as the president. I can't control the environment. I can't control whether or not the drivers around me on the freeway are going to be intelligent that day. I can't control, obviously, the weather. And a lot of people right now feel an abundant lack of control because there's a lot of things moving very quickly, especially in the United States right now. And it can create a large sense of anxiety, such as a personal scale. Like, I can't control if my car decides to die tomorrow, or at a more national level, such as I can't control what happens to the Department of Education. But it also can create a sense of anxiety because you lack a direction of where to aim your action. Even the most lazy individuals among us have the wiring to see a problem and the desire to do something about it. They may numb that, but even they have a wiring system where they need to do something about their situation, even if it's ill-informed, ill-directed, and uneducated. Which means the majority of us see these issues around us, feel the anxiety and the need to take control of them, and do our best to behave in a manner that we feel is doing so. My challenge to everyone listening right now is to question if you are investing your time, your peace, and your effort towards things you cannot control but wish you could. For example, I control what I say. I control how I say it, and I control what and when I say it. I don't control how other people react. I control what I ask when I ask how I ask it. I don't control how other people will respond to my questioning. I control my preparation. I control if I am driving when the weather is safe. I control what I am willing to do. I control how I behave at work. I control how I respond to employers' requests. I control how I react towards my family members. I control if I do or do not talk about past experiences. I control who I trust, how much I trust, and when I trust. I control if I forgive people. I control when I let my anger drive or when I do not. Essentially, the only realm of actual control that we can influence and dictate is self-control. And that's no insane or extremely provocative idea that no one has ever heard of before. Everyone talks about self-control. What I am aiming to eliminate and highlight is the fact that many people assume that their self-control expands beyond themselves. They may be egotistical enough to believe they are extremely persuasive, or they may actually be talented and gifted in the art of persuasion. But at the end of the day, they do not have control over other people, and that means other people do not have control over you. This leads me to another point, which is around work ethic. I live by the quote from Carl Jung, an incredible psychologist, where he states, "You are what you do, not what you say you will do." A lot of us can talk a good talk. I'm a marketer by trade. Marketers especially have a reputation for saying a lot of fancy, fluffy things, for presenting a lot of presentations full of vanity metrics, and for not actually doing the things they say they can do. And while at the beginning of my career, I definitely fell prey to this negative sense of self-importance, or I should say a negative overconfident sense of self-importance, I have learned that the best approach is humility, because that will coincide with action, because you recognize the need for action, because you recognize what you can and cannot control. And whether you'd like to believe you can control your consumer or client or not, you're unable to. You can only control the amount of preparation, what you say, how you say, when you say it, and your behavior towards them. You are what you do focuses not only on what you can control, but also your sense of commitment. You don't want to have the reputation of never doing what you commit to doing or never doing what you say you will do. I make it a point to intentionally follow up on requests, either from my boss or from colleagues or from professors, even if they are not consistently asking for what they requested, right? Seems to the more mature audience, it's going to seem like a no-brainer concept that you're just proactive in following up when someone requests something of you. But I've been surprised by how often that is not a shared attribute or characteristic of others. Make sure that you do what you say you're going to do. Make sure you're delivering on what you say you can deliver. As marketers, don't promise things you can't promise. Don't oversell and then underwork. That does not lead to good situations, especially when you consider the fact that you really cannot control how other people react to you. The classic advice, undersell and overperform, right? Because you can control your performance. You can't control how others view it. You can control your daily routine. You can't control if other people will trust you. You can't control what you're offering and the data you use and the insights you share and your reputation and consistent in your work and performance. You cannot control the reaction of others towards that. A lot of people have undergone layoffs in the last several months, which is heartbreaking and most unfortunate, especially in the manner in which those layoffs have been executed. And that, of course, creates an enormous sense of anxiety and an incredible awareness of what you truly cannot control. I have been very privileged to not have been laid off up until this point in my career, and I could not imagine how that would feel. The unnerving, uneasy undoing of what you thought could be a stable element of your life. Whether we recognize it or not, human beings crave stability. We're a social animal. We work in packs, we work in groups, and we left the cave, right? Which inherently provides danger, which intrinsically creates anxiety. And that's not bad. That's actually good. But when we separate or are separated from what we consider our social tribe, it creates a lot of anxiety, and really it creates a sense of abandonment. I have an incredible 3-year-old son. He is as stubborn as any human being could ever be. And a lot of times I'll ask him, hey, can you please stop jumping off the couch? Something silly like that, right? Stop jumping off the couch. And he is committed. He is determined to keep doing that. And while he can't control the consequences around jumping off the couch, and he can't control how people may be reacting towards it, he can control if he does or not, which means he can control how committed towards it he is. He can control if he's going to give up or not. He can control if he's going to be stubborn or if he's going to be compliant. And the way I view commitment is that it is more about hope than about stubbornness, right? He's having fun jumping off the couch, and his commitment is the hope that he can continue to do that, to continue to experience that joy without negative consequence. And he's committed towards that. He's hopeful that will be the outcome, and he's willing to defy outside forces to maintain that control of his will. And that is what I encourage you to do. Whether or not you feel a sense of anxiety for the outside externalities, whether or not you have anxiety regarding what you can't control, whether that be political, personal, career-wise, financial, educational, focus on what you can control and be committed and hopeful towards making that work. For example, in my personal life, I have had to evaluate what work ethic really is. I thought I knew what it was, and I definitely worked hard my entire life. And I've met people that are much more lazy than me, and I met people that work much harder than me. And it caused me to question, like, what really is work ethic? Is it purely a subsidiary of the amount of time you invest? Is just about the impact you can have? Some people say, hey, you should be paid based off of your impact, not your time. Other people say, well, if you're not investing time, what are you really doing? What actually constitutes and qualifies a good work ethic? Right. So I've been considering that, contemplating what my belief structure around work ethic is. And it ties towards control, and it ties towards commitment. I do think part of it is a time equation. I think part of it is the impact you have. But really, at the end of the day, what matters is you're getting things done. Work ethic, how hard you work, or rather the impact of your work, how hard you need to be working, is purely determined by the actuality of your impact. Meaning, the difference between what you say you will do, your words, your facade, your heightened sense of self, your individualized, free, independent, powerful, lone wolf existence versus what you're actually doing, what's actually happening is hard work. It's the difference. It's not the result. It's not work for the sake of work. There are a lot of people who have worked really hard that are poor, that are miserable. There are a lot of people who are super rich that are honestly super lazy and are also miserable. There are a lot of people that work really hard and are happy. There's a lot of people that don't work really hard and are self-proclaimed to be happy. I don't know if I really believe that, because I think you need an objective goal to strive towards to really experience that joy and dopamine. Because, as has been said, it's the pursuit of happiness, not the result. But at the end of the day, it's like work for the sake of work is non-consequential, aside from the fact that you have a goal. And that goal needs to be actualized. And the difference between what you say and what is actualized is what you do. And that element, that middle element, the what you are doing, is what constitutes work ethic. And that you can control. You can say a bunch of stuff and you can talk all day long, but it is in the actual work and effort you're putting in towards creating and building and actualizing what you say that you can control. And focusing on that has helped alleviate a lot of anxiety for me. It has allowed me to simplify my life, both in terms of what I'm dedicating time to, how much time I'm dedicating towards it, as well as prioritizing different goals. It's important to note and understand that as we talk about self-improvement, as we talk about growth, as we talk about tenets of control, that it is not just about growing for growth's sake. It's not just about change for change's sake. It's about actualizing what you envision. It's about building what you desire. It's about doing what you say and not living in some emotional reasoning fantasy that you are amazing simply because you say so. Simply because you're trying to overcome or counter or hide or build a facade that prevents you from feeling your sense of insecurity. It's about the actualization. It's about being what you do, not what you say. It's about the actions and the facts around those, not about what you emotionally connect and tie towards your goals. So it's easy to portray you are something. It's much harder to go out and actually become something. There's potential, and then there's characteristic, there's character, there's actually being someone, not just having the potential to be someone. There's actually bringing impact and creating value, not just the potential to create value. I turned 27 this week. A lot of my prior mentors really helped instill belief in myself that I had potential, that I had things to offer, that I was going to bring about changes, and I have, and I'm very grateful for that confidence that they have instilled in me and for their support and belief throughout the years. And I've come to the point in my career now and in my life where I'm more focused about bringing value and driving impact than proving I have potential. I'm more interested in driving excellence than fighting for a chance, if that makes sense. And that's been quite an adjustment to go from the kid who doesn't have any money to go from the homeschooled, no schooled kid that I was towards getting education, gaining experience, developing hard skills, and going out into the world and actually doing that for some time. It's quite an adjustment. It's a different positioning. It's a different mindset. It's a different mentality, and it's a different perspective. And I'm sure I will have this adjustment many, many times as I continue throughout my career and my life. But the change in perspective's been valuable because now instead of focusing on what I could do, I'm focusing on what I will do. And instead of focusing on what I want to say about myself, I can focus on the things that I can say about myself. Instead of focusing on talking about, oh, well, I understand Google Ads. I understand brand positioning. I understand product differentiation. I can actually be like, well, yes, I understand it, but I've also done it. And that perspective only comes with time and experience. As much as I hate saying that, I used to be the kid that was like, okay, like, yeah, I get it. You learn some things only from experience, but I can also learn from other people's experience by reading books and through education, which is true. Don't get me wrong. It's very true. You can mature and educate your mind much further ahead than your natural biological age. That's a given for sure. But it's also true that perspective comes with time. And just in case there's someone out there like me who's a ambitious 19-year-old with nothing much towards his name and wants to change that, be patient with yourself. Have some self-compassion, because I'm only at the start of things personally in my career, and already I've seen the actual need for time, and in understanding that perspective and understanding what you can and can't control, because you need to actually take action. And taking action is more than a mentality. It's more than understanding theoretically. It's actually applying and doing what you said you would do. And that puts a lot of pressure. That can be a lot of stress, especially, I was talking with an associate of mine that's younger than me, a true Gen Zer, I should say. And he was sharing the challenge of culturally being judged for going down a traditional business career, the backlash from parents for going down a trade route and important blue collar work, and the institutional criticism for pursuing something more like the arts, like dancing or painting or music or things of that nature. And he was sharing that you really can't win if you're trying to please other people. Because like, it doesn't really matter what you do. Someone is going to shit on you. Someone is going to judge you. And for him, that was pressure that he struggled to work past. And I could not talk about control and self-actualization and the realization of the change in my perspective without also talking about the fact that you cannot control what other people will say and think about you as you're actually taking action. And personally, I believe that because of the inherent virtue that action creates and working creates, you really shouldn't care what other people are saying and thinking about you. Not only can you not control it, it also is pointless. Now, I'm not saying don't seek feedback. Feedback is critical. We always have an over self-inflated sense of ego. So feedback is hugely important, especially as you're beginning your career and especially as you strive to start taking control of your life. Something that I have really benefited from doing is the self-authoring course from Jordan Peterson. Very helpful, very, very helpful. I've done a significant amount of therapy to better understand why I think the way I think about certain things. So it's important from that perspective, but also like feedback is the only way that you can really understand who you are from the outside looking in. the problem is a lot of people don't hear that judgment and that negative criticism from others and view it as, oh, okay, they're giving me feedback on how I'm portraying myself. They view it as, oh, okay, they're dictating the value I have inside myself. And that's not true. It's not true for anyone. And especially not true of people that you don't want to be anything like, right? So like I had a coworker back when I was working in the agency world who I wasn't particularly fond of. He wasn't particularly fond of me. That's fine. Doesn't really matter. And I noticed that he did not like the way I did things. And I began asking myself questions like, okay, should I change? Like, he obviously doesn't like the way I'm approaching this. So like, am I in the wrong? Is he in the wrong? Is it just a difference of approach? And the more I thought about it, I was like, okay, well, there is need for self-awareness from third parties or outside perspectives. So I went to the people that I actually wanted to be like. I said, hey, could you please provide me some feedback for me? Can you please help me better understand this element of myself? I didn't tell them what my colleague was upset with, but I just said, hey, this is something I'm trying to better understand about myself. What do you think is the right approach, the right tactic? And they, in that particular situation, and there's been many when it has not been this case, but in that situation, they were in favor of my approach. And it caused me to realize that I benefit a lot from feedback from the type of people that I aim and aspire to be like. But from the people that I want to be nothing like, why would I take their life advice? So as I bring guests onto this podcast, please keep in mind that I am only inviting guests that I genuinely aspire to be like. I am not the most qualified person to have a podcast. I am not a perfect marketer. I'm not a perfect role model as a dad and husband, and I am most certainly not a perfect person, and I don't aim to be. Something I beat myself up over years and years and years of religious activity, and it's something that I no longer even strive for. Instead, I strive to grow and improve and to be who I say I am. And I take control over what I can control, and I recognize and accept and let go of the elements that I cannot. That doesn't mean you can't contribute. That doesn't mean you can't work and actively support and influence and persuade things, such as like voting and such as speaking up and making your voice known. Those are things you can do. But I hope that this message reaches you and gives you the permission to let go of your anxiety around the things you really don't have control over, so that you can then focus on the things you can control instead of being distracted. Be intentional about what you sacrifice. Be disciplined in your habits. Be logical with your reasoning. Accept and feel your emotions, but live from a place of accountability, a place of action around the elements that you can control, because we are what we do, not what we say we will do. Thanks. Thank you for listening to the Why Not podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow and share with your friends.